Good evening, guys. Welcome to your video notes, multi-representation of slope. Don't forget that this is a quiz grade. Your objective, we will determine the slope from different representations. Your essential question, what are the methods for each representation in order to determine the slope? All right, so before we begin, let's talk about Mr. Slopeface. Okay, Mr. Slopeface is a dude that helps us remember which type of slope we're dealing with. So let's start off with an eye. Okay, here's an eye. If the line is going this way, we consider that to be a positive slope. If a line is going this direction, we consider that to be a negative slope. Okay, all right, now here we got his nose, which is a vertical line. And we call that undefined. So if you notice the U that I made there, that stands for undefined. So U is undefined. The vertical line has a slope that is undefined. All right, and last but not least is his mouth. His mouth is a horizontal line. It has a slope of 0. Okay, so we'll put zeros at the end and under it. Okay, so that's his mouth. Man, my line ain't pretty straight. Let's try that again. They're much better. Horizontal line, slope of 0. Okay, so this is Mr. Slopeface. So I got a joke for you. Why is Mr. Slopeface always angry? Answer at the end of the video. Alright, so to do slope from a graph, we will be using rise over run. Those are the words we'll be using for slope from a graph. Make sure you write that down. Alright, so here's number 1. So notice it has 2 points. Before we can begin, please notice the direction of this line. Okay, you need to determine if it's positive or negative. According to Mr. Slopeface, this was positive. And this is negative. So the direction of this line is a negative trend. So I'm going to go ahead and put a negative line there. Now remember, we're going to do rise over run. So we've been given 2 points here. So I will use these 2 points and make a triangle. So I'm going to rise this high because that's the height of point A. Okay. So I've made my triangle from point A to point B. So count how many squares. This is 2 squares. This is my rise. And then I'm going to count my run. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 squares. So my run is 4. So when I write my numbers over here, it's going to be 2. I'm going to go ahead and put negative over 4. This would be my slope. However, this slope can be reduced. It can be reduced to negative 1/2. And that's the slope of this line. The reason it reduces to 1/2 is that if you look closely, I can make a smaller triangle within that. And I make another point. And I can repeat the same pattern up 1 and over 2. Up 1 and over 2. Let's do one more. Up 1 and over 2. All right, let's look at number 2. Again, let's use Mr. Slopeface. Mr. Slopeface dictates that if this eyebrow is going this way, it is positive. If it's that way, it's negative. As you can see, this is a positive slope. Okay, so we're going to do rise over run. All right, so I'm going to start with the lower point. I'm going to rise, and then I'm going to run to point A. Okay, so my rise is this line right here. So I'm going to count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my rise is 6. All right, now my run is from here to here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's my run. Okay, so the number that goes on top is 6. The number that goes on the bottom is 4. Now, this is not my final answer because you can reduce. 6 over 4 reduces to 3 over 2. And so that is my slope. Let's continue. All right. Please take your pen and make this darker right here. What we have here is a horizontal line. Let's use yellow instead. Horizontal line. Okay? Again, if we go with Mr. Slopeface is going to tell you the answer. If you remember, here's his eye. That was positive. Here's his other eye. That's negative. A vertical line is undefined. And his mouth, I hope you got this, the slope is 0. Okay? So we can just quickly say 0. But let's talk about why it's 0. Let's talk about the rise. I'm going to pick 2 points here. Is there any rise to that? Did you go up or any? No. So your rise is 0. Now let's talk about your run. From this point to this point, I ran 2. So my run is 2. Well, 0 divided by 2 is 0. So that's why our answer for a horizontal line is 0. All right, let's go to number 4. All right, guys, here's number 4. Again, let's emphasize that there is a vertical line right here. Okay, so you can see that. Now again, we go back to Mr. Slopeface. This is a positive slope. This is a negative slope. His nose is undefined slope, and his mouth was 0. Now I just said the answer. I hope you heard. The slope is undefined. Now let's talk about why the slope is undefined. All right, so let's talk about rise. Let's pick 2 points. Let's pick this point and this point. As you can see, it rises 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. So I'm going to put 4. But does it run? Does it go from left to right? It does not. So there is nothing. All right, now, can you divide by 0? And the answer is, of course not. Okay, so this gives us an undefined answer. All right, so that's how you find slope from a graph. All right, slope between 2 points. We have a formula, a slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Make sure you write that down. All right, so let's look at number 5. Before we begin, let's label our points. All right, so this is going to be your first x. So that's why we call it x1. All right, and then we have x2, the second x. All right, this will be your first y, y1. This will be your second y, y2. So let me rewrite that formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so we will just put these numbers that we've labeled in the correct position. So it says y2. y2 is 6. And then it says minus y1, which is 3. All right, now our x2. Second x is 12. Minus the first x, which is 8. So 6 minus 3 is 3. 12 minus 8 is 4. So the slope for this line is 3 over 4. This means rises 3 squares and runs 4. Okay? Let's go on to the next example. Number 6. Again, let's label our points. This is your first x. This is your second x. This is your first y. This is your second y. Our formula dictates that the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we will put the numbers where they go. So this is y2, so 6 and then minus 4. And then our bottom, x2, which is 12, minus a negative 18. Now notice I put this in parentheses because we have two negatives. You do have the option that since you recognize that you have two negatives, you can go ahead and write plus 18. Okay, so let's calculate. 6 minus 4 is 2. 12 plus 18 is 30. This reduces, both numbers can be divided by 2. So it'll give us 1 over 15. Now this means I rise 1 square and I run 15. Okay, so our slope is 1 over 15. All right, slope from the table. This triangle means change. Take this from science. All right, the triangle means change. So this is the change in y over the change in x. So make sure you write that down. All right, so we got a table here. Now before we can do anything with this relation, let's put the information in the table. So I'll be writing these points into the table. So I'm going to do 0, 4, 8, 12, and 16. Those are all the x values, if you notice. And then I'll match the appropriate y values. Negative 3, 0, 3, 6, and 9. Again, I just wrote this ordered pairs in a table. All right, so when we do change in y over change in x, we need to focus only on 2 points. Let's say we focus on these. Okay, the question now is, how did the y's change? How did this 3 become a 6? Well, I believe it added 3 to get to 6. All right, now we repeat the same process on the other side. The other side is what we call the change in x. How did this 8 become a 12? It added 4. Now again, pay attention to which one goes on top. Change in y is going to be 3. And my change in x is going to be 4. So that is my slope, 3 over 4. Notice I don't need to put positive. I mean, if you want to, you can. All right, let's go on to the next one. Number 8. On number 8, we have a horizontal table instead of a vertical table. It does not change what you will be doing. So let's put in all our x's on the table. Again, that's all these first numbers. Now we're going to put our y's. 13, 1, negative 13, negative 25, and negative 36. Okay, so again, those were our y's. The formula is change in y over the change in x. And again, you can pick whatever numbers you like. I like these, so I'm going to go with these 2 numbers. The question is, this is your change in x. How did this negative 2 become a 0? So you would have to add 2 to get to 0. Okay, now the next question is, for our change in y, is how did this 1 become a negative 13? Well, you would have to subtract 14 to get to negative 13. All right, so now let's write our numbers where they go. So our change in y is negative 14. Our change in x is 2. Negative 14 divided by 2 is actually negative 7 over 1, or just negative 7. All right, so our slope, you can write it like this, or simplify to negative 7. All right, slope from an equation. To do slope from an equation, it needs to be in the form that we call slope-intercept form. y equals mx plus b. The only thing that we're going to focus on right now is the letter m. Your letter m is your slope. I guess we can go ahead and talk about this guy. This guy is your y-intercept. Okay. Notice that the slope is next to your x. So this brings back the joke. Why is Mr. Slopeface so angry? Because slope is always next to his x. Ha, ha, ha. Alright, so let's look at number 9. I'm going to put this equation, y equals mx plus b. If you notice, number 9 is y equals a number, a letter, and then another number. This is already in slope-intercept form. It follows y equals mx plus b. This number 4 is your slope. So the slope for number 9 is 4. The end. Okay? Now let's look at number 10. Number 10 is not quite set up in this format. We don't have mx plus b. So you can rewrite it by rearranging the numbers. Now when you rearrange, make sure you take the signs. If you notice this 2/3 is negative, make sure you put it 2/3. Now in front of this 13, there's nothing there. So you assume 13. Now granted, you really didn't have to do all that. You need to remember that the slope is always next to his x. But it also needs to always start with y equals. Okay, that's very important. Has to be in y equals. Alright, so the slope for this problem is negative 2/3. That's simple. Alright, so let's go on to number 11. I hope you recognize this. So I hope you guess what we have to do next. Hope you said solve for y. We have been practicing this skill just for this. So let's solve for y. So remember, we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. Now I really can't subtract 3x, so we just write it there. So let's bring everybody down. When we bring everybody down, this 4 is multiplying that y. Make sure you understand that this is a y. So since it's multiplying, the inverse is to divide everything by 4. So y equals, I'm going to go ahead and reduce 5/2 minus 3/4 x. Okay, so I solved for y. Now let's put this in slope-intercept form. Our slope-intercept form will be y. Now I need the slope first. The number that is next to your x is your slope. So the slope is negative 3/4. So negative 3/4 x, and again there's nothing in front of this 5/2, so I just write it like that. Alright, the end. Alright, number 12. Ooh, there's some distributing going on here. Well, let's get to work on it. So let's simplify this. So what I'm going to do is drop the 12. I'm going to distribute this 3 to this x. So negative 3x and negative 3 times negative 1. It gives us a positive 3. Alright, then I need to combine like terms, 12 and 3. So this will give me negative 3x plus 15. Voila! It fits the form of y equals mx plus b. So slope-intercept form is negative 3x plus 15. So our slope for this problem is negative 3. Alright, last question. Slope-intercept from an equation. This one's a little bit different. If you notice, we'll go ahead and distribute. So we get 4x plus 32. And we bring down the left side. Now, this is not, the y is not isolated, so I need to get rid of it. I need to get rid of the 7. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So y equals 4x plus 39. So as you can tell, that is slope-intercept form. It fits the format of y equals mx plus b. So our slope for this problem is 4. All right, guys, you have U tries. Remember, this is question number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You'll only be typing in your slope on Canvas. Don't forget that I'm looking for 4 specific complete sentences. Using the word it is not part of a complete sentences. Describe what you're doing, okay? All right, that's it. Bye.